What's up? Isaiah here to talk to you about this year's NASCAR Cup Series Daytona 500. I'm coming to you from sunny Naples, Florida, and we're talking about not so sunny Daytona, Florida. I'm excited for the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season. I hope you are too. We've got a lot to go over today, including our race preview, our sponsor, BetMGM, which is running an awesome promotion in combination with our site, and of course, the picks. I recommend that you check out my 2024 NASCAR Cup Series season preview, which I have linked in the video description. And without further ado, let's get into the race preview itself. Again, this is the Daytona 500. It's the Great American Race. We're obviously over at Daytona International Speedway, which is a 2-mile super speedway track, which means you can expect drafting to determine the outcome of this one. Unfortunately, as I alluded to earlier, there is rain in the forecast. It's not quite so sunny over there. So it's TBD on when we'll actually get this race in. I would be surprised if it runs as scheduled on Sunday afternoon. We might get it on Sunday night if we're lucky. It might be during the week. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on the weather in Daytona before you get excited to watch this year's race. I do have a couple key notes that we need to talk about for this event. First is that we've got two Fords on the front row. The Fords looked great in qualifying. Joey Logano was super fast. So was Michael McDowell. They secured the front row in qualifying. However, in the NASCAR duels, the Toyotas were faster. They actually scored the P3 and P4 positions via the duels. And they're also fastest at individual laps in practice. Both Ford and Toyota are using a new nose this year. Ford's Mustang Dark Horse has some prominent ridges on the side of the fenders, while Toyota's new Camry nose is a little bit flatter and more condensed, which some suspect indicates that they're trying to focus more on improving in the draft. Next is that Ford's dominated drafting tracks last year. I'm including Atlanta and Talladega and Daytona in this sample. They won 3 of the 6 events, but they fielded the car that led the most laps in all 6. I really think they should have won like 5, maybe 4 of the events. Only winning 3 is a bit of a disappointment for Ford, given how good they were at these tracks last year. Of course, there's also the note that the last 4 Daytona winners all had odds of 30-1 or longer heading into the event, and that includes 2021's winner, Michael McDowell, who was at 66-1, and he's now starting, I think, in P2, as I said earlier. So, yeah, we've got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about for this event, and I'm just going to get right into the picks. So our first pick, we actually have to go away from the outright markets. We can't just look at this odds board. I know that I have it on the long shots. I probably shouldn't have had it there. But we're going to go over to the manufacturer markets. We're going to talk about Ford at plus 160. So why are we backing Ford at plus 160? I just said that they were dominant on super speedways last year. I think they'll be dominant again. Sure, they didn't look as great in the duels as they could have liked, or as I would have liked to see, but they were probably held back by some weird strategy calls they couldn't seem to get in sync on when they were pitting. I'm looking for them to smooth that out in the big race. Further, practice 1 data on Friday is actually really important to me here. Last year, Chevrolets ran the fastest individual laps in practice, but Ford's ran the fastest 10-lap averages. What happened in the big race? Well, Ford dominated. They led 57% of the event, and they accounted for the 5 best drivers by driver rating. They just happened to come up short at the end. This year, Toyota ran the fastest individual laps, but Ford drivers all recorded the fastest 10-lap averages, which suggests, again to me, long-term success in the draft for the Ford cars at the expense of the rest of the field. It's also worth noting that Ford dominated last year's Coke Zero 400 in the summer, and I think Chris Buescher won that one for RFK Racing. So yeah, we've seen Fords do really well at super speedways and at Daytona lately. The dark horse nose does complicate things a little bit, but I'm willing to throw caution to the wind and back Ford at plus 160. I actually bought in at plus 140, which is where it's still trading at DraftKings, but you can get the plus 160 at MGM. Before we get into our next 2 picks, which are both going to be long shot bets, I need to talk about BetMGM. They're running an awesome promotion in combination with OddsShopper, where you can get up to $1,500 in bonus credits plus 2 free months of OddsShopper Premium. The $1,500 in bet credits are pretty self-explanatory. You get that money, then you bet through it. It's a deposit match. Once you've bet through that amount, you've earned that amount back in cash, and you can start withdrawing it right away as soon as you've bet through it. And of course, we also have to talk about OddsShopper Premium, which is the only way that you can get access to my full NASCAR betting cards. I will not be going through all of my picks on this video. OddsShopper Premium is more than just my NASCAR betting picks, though. It's an all-in-one package that includes all of our premium sports betting tools like our parlay builder, as well as access to expert picks in our Discord. So that means you can get profitable plus EV plays on the daily for almost every sport. You get to engage with the community that's printing money using those picks, and you get to ask questions to the experts that built and use those tools on the daily to make money. In addition to our other bets that don't pop up in the model, like my NASCAR picks, because we don't have that integrated into the model quite yet. Anyway, let's go back to the outright odds board and let's go right back to those long shots that we were looking at earlier, because that's, again, where you're going to find the most value for the Daytona 500. Let's start by talking about, let's see, where is he at? He is at 60 to 1 over here. David Reagan. So he's at 60 to 1 at BetMGM. He's at 80 to 1 at DraftKings. He's going to be our first long shot bet. He came up just short in this race back in 2011 because of a pit road penalty. So we know that he can compete in the Daytona 500. We also know that he can win at super speedways because he won at 2 super speedway races later in his career. He won a Daytona summer race. I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was for Roush. And then he won at Talladega when driving for Front Row Motorsports. So yeah, he's won at drafting tracks before. He just hasn't gotten the big race. And who knows how many chances he has left. Further, he's been in strong recent form at Daytona. He has 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts here, and that's despite driving for Rick Ware and Front Row. He's driving for RFK Racing now, which led the most laps at Daytona last year, won in the summer. Anyway, you get the point. He's in the best equipment he's been in years. He's got great teammates who can excel in the draft, who I think are both trading at 20 to 1 or shorter. And we're getting him at 80 to 1 to win this race. And you could also get him at plus 285 just to bring his car home in the top 10, which again, he's done in 3 of his last 10 starts at Daytona. He's a great value bet. Let's talk about our next long shot, which is going to be a little bit further down the odds board. And we're actually going to leave the Ford camp for this one. We're going to talk about Toyota and John Hunter Nemechek. He's 80 to 1 to win this race over at MGM, and he's plus 275 to score a top 10. Why are we targeting John Hunter Nemechek? I know that I talked a lot about the Fords, and I know that I've kind of contextualized why I think they'll be stronger than the Toyotas. But let's be real, the Toyotas were damn fast in the duels. It would not surprise me at all to see them competing with the Fords to win this race at the end. Further, John Hunter Nemechek has a proven track record at super speedways. He's made 4 Cup Series starts at super speedways in 2020, which is the only time he was a full-time driver. He recorded an average finish of 9.5 with, I think, 2 8th place finishes at Talladega and 2 11th place finishes at Daytona. So that's insane consistency. He did not crash out once, and he now returns to the Cup Series with Legacy Motor Club. This is after a multi-year hiatus in which he drove in both the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series. How did he do on super speedways in those series? Well, last year, he was really impressive. He got his first super speedway win in Atlanta in the Xfinity Series, and he even scored a runner-up in the Daytona Spring Race in the Xfinity Series. So we've seen him run very well at Daytona lately, just not in Cup because he hasn't gotten a chance to do so. At 80 to 1 to win and plus 275 to score a top 10, I'm all over John Hunter Nemechek. That's far too long for a guy who is this talented, who has proven that he can win at super speedways in good equipment, like in the lower series. And he's also proven that he can keep his car clean in not so good equipment while in the Cup Series. So yeah, I do not understand why the odds for him are that long. He looked pretty good in the duels. Toyota looked pretty good in practice. I'm not sold on Legacy Motor Club as being as good as 2311 or as JGR this year, especially because I don't think they're doing as much coordination between or with those teams as I would have liked. But this is a super speedway. It's a great equalizer. I would not be shocked to see John Hunter Nemechek end up in victory lane. All right, that's going to do it for our picks. Let me just run through them again real quick. So we've got the Fords to win this one at plus 160 at BetMGM. We've got David Reagan outright at 80 to 1 on DraftKings, and we've also got him to score a top 10. I like his top 10 odds down to plus 250. We've got John Hunter at 80 to 1 at MGM. We've also got him to score a top 10. Again, I like it down to plus 250. That's really the value threshold for this bet. Super speedways races are pretty random, but with 40 cars in the field, the implied odds are, you're not getting quite the raw odds that you'd want, but because those guys have such a good proven track record of keeping their cars clean, that's still a far too long number for them to bring their cars home inside the top 10. Again, my full NASCAR betting card for the Cup Series race at Daytona is going to be in our premium Discord, and I will see you again next week.